One day several years ago, I was leaving work and I was walking to my car, and as I got in the parking lot, I saw a nail on the ground. As I walked past it, but then I realized, that nail could really ruin somebody's day if it got stuck in their tire. So I went back and picked it up. And as I did, a car drove past me, and one of my coworkers yelled, "You're a good man, Mike." And it was nice to be noticed for doing something kind. However, it's actually kind of a scary story. It made me wonder, how often have my actions, whether they're good or bad, been witnessed by others? So I'm not using this story to brag, and in fact, I'd say there have been several times I've done some not so kind things on the road, and on those occasions, people have used certain hand signals to explain that I could have been more Christ-like. So I've been put in the path of a lot of people. How often do I inadvertently preach, good or bad, to others by my words and my actions? Now, am I the only one with this mission? Obviously not. The readings today speak of being sent out on mission. Amos is sent away from home to preach. Jesus sends the apostles out to preach, to heal, and to drive out evil. So let's consider the mission that God gives. First of all, who is sent to speak for God? Second, what's the message? And third, how should the message be shared? So first of all, who is sent to speak for God? And I bet you can guess the answer to that question. We're all sent to call others closer to Jesus Christ. It's easy for us to think that the preaching should be done by priests and deacons. However, the first reading is a great example of someone called from everyday life into mission. Amos lived at a time when the 12 tribes of Israel were split into the northern and southern kingdoms. Because they were divided, there was, of course, some tension between them. Part of the division was that the northern leadership had allowed the rich to exploit the poor, and their worship had become just lip service, and God wanted to intervene. Now, while there were teams of prophets who studied and taught religion, God didn't choose them. Instead, he asked Amos to go speak against the king, just some regular dude from the rival kingdom. And Amos responded. Amos fought for the poor. He called on the people to offer true worship. He spoke the words of God, even berating the king. And in today's reading, you hear the king's leaders telling Amos, "Go back home. Go be a prophet anywhere but here." And Amos said, "I was no prophet. I was a shepherd and dresser of sycamores." So now a modern version of this might be, "I'm not a priest or a deacon, but God called me to speak on his behalf, and I won't deny him." Amos had a calling. What's your calling? The Catechism of the Catholic Church says it is the job of all lay Christians, and that's you, to discover or invent the means for permeating social, political, and economic realities with demands of Christian doctrine and life. Pope Pius XII said it similarly: lay believers are in the front line of church life. So God has given you a mission. Share the message of God. So second, what's the message we're sent to proclaim? In the second reading from the letter to Ephesus, St. Paul begins with a hymn of blessings. He has this long list that he tells the people. God has given us every spiritual blessing in the heavens. He destined us for adoption. We have redemption by his blood. We have forgiveness of transgressions. He has lavished upon us riches of his grace. He's made known to us the mystery of his will. So, for our world, what do we begin our messages with? The same good news that you heard from St. Paul. What do we say to others? And I would suggest we tell our stories. How has God blessed you in your life? What are your stories of failure, and how has God rescued you? How has God rescued you from those trials? What does it mean to you to be an adopted child of God? What good and beautiful actions has God accomplished in your life? What glorious news has God revealed to you in your life? Like Amos called for people to worship God truly from their hearts, share your stories of your love for God. This is your good news. Sharing it is not as hard as you think. So third, we're called to share this wonderful news of God's work. How should the message be shared? Now, if you turn on the news or you follow politics or even if you just read Facebook, we see what at least I see a common method for preaching truth. Someone takes a fact and just hammers their opposition with it. And I would say that attempting to convince someone with, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, is not an effective method. It might make us feel good about ourselves, but God does not call us to be comfortable. We are called to bring Christ to others. The psalm today told us that God proclaims peace and that kindness and truth shall meet. In our preaching, kindness and truth should be our guide. We see that in the gospel today. Jesus sent his disciples out, and they preached the truth, and they also brought healing from demonic possessions and illnesses. What can we do that's similar? How can we make the gifts of redemption, grace, and forgiveness visible to others? And it's like I just said, share your stories. And in fact, what if you started in your own home? Parents, how many of you have told your children about your love of God? Have you shared your struggles with them? Do they know your stories? Now, children, you might be sitting there thinking, yeah, you tell them, Deacon. What about you? Have you shared your stories of your relationship with God with your parents? Have you told them how you feel about God and how you feel about the church? And you might think, my parents won't listen to me. But let me tell you, as a parent, there is enormous power in what you have to share with your parents. Even if it doesn't show, I promise you it will affect them. We can also go beyond our homes. Do you want to convert other people? Let them know God's love. Tell your stories. And beyond talking, how do our actions preach? My social ministry that I'm assigned to with the Archdiocese is special youth services. In that ministry, teams go to facilities and provide weekly Bible studies for incarcerated boys and girls. 90% of the preaching is just showing up. The action of being present with them is a powerful sign of God's presence with them. In what ways are you sharing what the Catechism calls the testimony of life? In what ways do your actions mirror what Amos called for, care and concern for those in need? Now, if you're looking for ideas on ways you can care for those in need, don't forget about the parish's summer activity, Mission 2021. We were challenged, all of us were challenged to complete works of mercy and record those on a card that looks like this. That's going to be submitted at the end of August. Now, for me, one of the hardest parts of serving those in need has always been figuring out how to do it, but fortunately, the website for Mission 2021 offers several opportunities like the food pantry, assistance at pregnancy centers, and the women's shelter. And so if you want more information on that, I have a homily resources page. If you go to ap.church/Deacon Mike, I have links there that you can get to that information. There are so many places where the love of Christ is needed. So with your actions, go and share that message. So I wonder if, just like me, have you noticed that you're influencing others around you by your words and actions? God sent Amos to preach. He also sent the disciples to bring healing and love. In the same way, you are sent to preach and to bring healing and love. The Catholic Church knows that you're on the front lines of life. You have an opportunity to impact countless people. So the challenge today, just like Amos and just like the disciples, know that you're called by your adoption and through the forgiveness you've been offered. You have a mission to bring Christ to others. If you don't know what to do, just show up. With your kids, at the hospital, in a prison, with the poor, being there is 90% of the work. And through your testimony of life, by speaking and acting, share the good and beautiful actions of our wonderful God. St. Anthony of Padua,